I'm going to call the Select Board meeting back into open session. We were in executive session earlier this evening, and we did make some movement there, and we will be announcing our decision at a future meeting. I also want to remind you that as required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing nobody, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comments and announcements. Brianna?
Hi, Brianna Powell, Housing Advocate. I am just here, I believe you all have this in the packet.
Yeah,
Sorry.
put the mic, yeah, can you move it closer?
Is that better? I just wanted to mention that there are 6 new affordable apartments available well, soon to be available on Route 28 in Dennis, right across from Ezra Baker Elementary School. 5 of the units are 1 bedroom, and 1 unit has 2 bedrooms. The application can be picked up at the town of Dennis in the planning department. And in order to be considered, the applicant must also complete a 2024 Ready Renter Lottery application and have all documents and applications submitted no later than August 4th at 4 p.m. I'm working with Sarah to get the Ready Renter application and notice updated or put on the newly updated website in the Housing Advocacy Department page. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions about that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment and announcement?
Hi, Carolyn Carey, Community Center Director. Nobody's saying you can't hear me. Never happens. I just wanted to announce our upcoming July events. On July 6th, from 11 to 3, we'll be co-sponsoring with the Recreation Department, Stars, Stripes, and Circus Delights to get ready for the circus coming to town. And it is a community picnic with games and fun and free, and please stop by. It should be a great time. All of these flyers can be seen on the town website, and they are also at the community center and downstairs here on our bulletin board. The next is on July 11th, continuing the circus theme. We're doing a circus movie day. It's the only day I'll pray for rain on Cape. July 11th at 2:30, and we are showing Toy Story 2. Toy Story 4, well, I guess I'll watch 2, sorry. Then on July 25th, we are making slime making from 2:30 to 4:30. Another free event. On July 26th, back by popular demand, is a pasta and trivia night, 5:30 till 7 or until we run out of food. So that is on July 26th. And we are also taking signups for the Saturday community yard sale on August 2nd at Brooks Park. In the event of rain, it's in the community center, but signups go pretty quickly, so we are taking those now. And lastly, I wanted to mention that mobile youth outreach for the Cape and Islands will be at the community center on Tuesdays from 3 to 4. So we're just going to partner with them and try and help people out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn. Anybody else for public comment and announcement? Judy?
The room's changed.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, right.
Got some upgrades, Judy.
Hello, the board. I'm Judith Ford. I'm here to announce the incredible concert and performance that we're doing at the South Harwich Meeting House again. We did it last weekend to absolutely rave audiences. We've had 2 incredible nights, Saturday night and Sunday afternoon, and we have only 1 weekend left to go. And Sunday's nearly sold out, and so if anyone is interested in going, please get on our website and get tickets right away. I know Don was there last night. I was thrilled to see him. I think it's really important that the town administration and everybody in the building and everybody that cares about Harwich history definitely come to this performance. It is absolutely outstanding, and it is one of a kind, and you'll never see anything like it again. It's absolutely incredible. And it's basically our captain stories. They're profound, they are inspiring, they are treacherous, they're scary, and they're ours. It's all Harwich, all South Harwich, all the captains that we're doing the stories on are absolutely amazing. Everybody will be absolutely shocked at what those lives were like for those men and families. And most of what we do actually happened at the Meeting House itself. So it's just a divine opportunity to be able to show those stories there and take preservation to the next level, where the building is absolutely stunningly renovated, but the stories within are just being told. So it will be the Saturday at 7 and this Sunday at 4. And it's on our website, southharwichmeetinghouse.com. It'll come up right away, and you can scroll down and pick the concerts that are remaining or the seats that are remaining, and we would love to see all of you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy.
Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm going to hold most of my comments for the consent agenda items, but I thought this was the appropriate time to announce the Harwich Police is going to have a change of command and promotional ceremony. That's going to be open to the public. We welcome everybody to attend. This is going to be on July 2nd at 10 a.m. at Monomoy High School Auditorium. The public entrance is to the rear because the school's closed. You have to come in from the back. But we're really looking forward to this public event and this great day for our department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Kelleher, Harwich, as a citizen. Good evening, Board. I just want to thank Sarah Eaton for the wonderful job she did on the town's newsletter. I think it's a great improvement over what we had. I'm looking forward, not to belabor a point, and I want to thank administration too, because I know you don't do anything on your own. I don't want to belabor the point, but I'm looking forward to a newsletter where we can have weekly pushes to give people information on what's going on in town, like beach stickers, dump stickers. I'd also like to recommend that the board and the public, if you can, to go with the Town of Chatham website and look at the town manager's report to the select board. In that report is the activities of the town manager, plus each department, their monthly activities. It shows you what they all do. It's actually very similar to what the harbor master does. And there's a couple of advantages of that type of report, is you can see what's going on in the town, you as a board, us as citizens. You can detect trends. You know, you can see if there's more EMT calls, more police calls. And finally, I think the benefit of that weekly report, or that monthly report, is you can see all the work that our town employees do and town departments do. We really don't know what goes on, but that report shows you the volume of calls, the meetings they go to. So I just hope now that we've made a start with the new software, that we continue forward with the town newsletter and something similar to what Chatham does, the town manager's report to the select board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else for public comment and announcement? Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for being here. I would just like to remind the public that I will be holding office hours, I believe, with Select Board Member McCaskill this Thursday on June 27th from 7:30 a.m. to about 8:45 a.m. at the Seal Pub at 703 Main Street, Harwich. So we're mixing up the time a little bit, the venue a little bit. There'll be coffee, I hear. So all are welcome. Thank you.
Restricted to coffee, right?
Well, yes, potentially. And I also would like to thank Sarah Eaton publicly as well for all her hard work on the website. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sure.
And now we'll move on to our,
We gave one more.
oh, sure, sorry.
Teresa Johnson, King Henry Road, Harwich. I just have a couple of questions and clarifications with the traffic study. Now, will that include the King Henry area of Queen Anne Road with the Pine Oaks Village traffic study?
So we discussed having a Cape Cod Commission and having a discussion about traffic ongoing because of the different developments proposed. We don't currently have any project in front of us. The only other thing we do know for sure that's going to happen is the RFP that has responses to the property that is at 124 in Queen Anne Road. But any traffic study will look at, any traffic study that we do as we continue to keep traffic in our conversation, will incorporate all stretches of Queen Anne, the intersections.
So it would include the Depot, Main Street Extension, the Queen Anne Road, Queen Anne and Main Street.
Yeah, and Main Street, yeah. That's what we would propose it to do, because that's where the main choke points are.
Okay, but there's no
We
official.
don't have an official traffic study set up yet. We talked about traffic last week, and Steve Rhodes and Steve Tupper were not available to come to our meeting. And I don't know right now where we're at in terms of having them attend a meeting, but we've been talking about getting that scheduled.
And will a decision be made at some point of what areas and intersections to include?
Well, it will depend on where we go with whatever we come up with in terms of whatever official traffic study is going to happen. That would be, a contract that would have to be determined. So I can't answer a question yet because we haven't had the specific scope of the project that we would be looking for yet.
Okay. And has Pine Oaks Village proposed anything?
We have nothing
Or move
official
forward.
filed in front of this board at this time. Pine Oaks Village, the only thing we have, like I said, are the 3 responses to the RFP that went out by the Affordable Trust.
That's
Okay.
another problem.
And that's it, yeah, well, that's the project I just identified as being at Queen Anne and 124.
Okay, that's not Pine Oaks.
That's not that, right. Pine Oaks is further up the other end of Queen Anne, as you said, towards Old Main.
Right, near the condos.
But we have nothing currently filed for the board at this time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair. And I would just add to the board is, the intent of the board so far has been to study those intersections that you mentioned. So we just need Cape Cod Commission to respond and come to the meeting.
Now, no,
One more public comment. Next Select Board meeting will be held Monday, July 8th, 2024, at 6 PM.
thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
And now I would invite Kevin, Deputy Chief Considine, to speak to us about the next items on our consent agenda.
Good evening again, Deputy Chief Considine. Do you want me to just run through the memos and introduce?
That'd be
Okay.
wonderful.
Lieutenant Hutton, come on up.
No, we're going to let him speak about it.
So, with the promotion of chief from within, it's an exciting time for any police department. It enables that upward movement of many positions to different ranks, and it's very exciting for the department. And I think more so, it's more important for the individual officer to be able to have that upward movement. At times, that can be quite slow, depending on retirements or other means. So, very excited tonight to recommend 3 outstanding officers of the department. You have memos in your packet from Chief Gilmet, as he is still Chief of Police. Thought it would be appropriate for him to write the memos. I just want to make it clear as day that as far as the rank of lieutenant and deputy chief, I did those interviews. So it was just me and the candidates, and I made the choices. I consulted with the chief afterwards, and obviously he wholeheartedly supported my decisions, but those were my decisions after a long process and interviews. So I just wanted to make that clear. As far as the process for sergeant, that's contractual, and it says that one of the processes is interview, and it shall be with the chief. Chief Gilmet invited me into that process. We both did the scoring, and we both came out with the same results. So I just want to make that clear as well when we get to that third part of this. So the first one is recommendation for promotion to deputy chief. As a result of myself to chief, the rank of deputy chief exists. I am pleased to recommend that Lieutenant Adam Hutton be promoted to the rank of deputy chief, effective July 3rd, 2024. Adam began his career with the Harwich Police Department in 1994 as a summer special, and full-time April of 1998. He was promoted sergeant in 2008 and then lieutenant in April of 2019. Adam holds a master's degree in public administration from Anna Maria College. And as a patrol sergeant, Adam supervised a number of special units, including bike patrol, motorcycle unit, and ATV unit. Once promoted to lieutenant, Adam served as an administrative lieutenant, where he supervised the detective unit and managed firearms licensing, training, and policy development. Adam then moved into the role that he is in now as operations lieutenant, where he supervises 4 patrol sergeants and oversees all patrol-related functions of the department. I am extremely confident, as well as Chief Gilmet, that Adam's extensive institutional knowledge and experience will be a valuable asset to our department and, most importantly, to our community.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. And one more thing with 2 of these for deputy chief and lieutenant. It was just over 4 years ago where all 4 of us, myself, deputy chief, sergeant to lieutenant, and Sergeant Walensky, officer to sergeant, that we were promoted at the same time. So it's happening again tonight, and I'm very proud of that. So that is for Lieutenant Hutton.
Great.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah,
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for being here. And Adam, I move that we approve the appointment of Adam Hutton to Deputy Police Chief effective July 3rd, 2024, as recommended by Chief Gilmet.
Second.
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
They'll pose for you at the end, Bill.
Amy Walensky. As a result of promotion of Lieutenant Adam Hutton to the rank of Deputy Chief, an opening for lieutenant exists. We are pleased to recommend that Sergeant Amy Walensky be promoted to the rank of lieutenant effective July 3rd, 2024. Amy began her career with the Harwich Police Department in December of 2007 and was promoted to sergeant in April of 2019. As a patrol officer, Amy has done an exemplary job overseeing the hiring process, which involves recruitment, interview, background investigations, police academy liaisons, and field training. Amy has also taken an active role in community outreach for those with mental health, domestic violence, veterans affairs, and elder affairs. Amy also has served as a supervisor of dispatch. Amy holds a master's degree in criminal justice from Curry College. We are confident Amy will continue her exemplary work as the next lieutenant. And I will say, a lot of those positions I have done in the past, as far as hiring, recruitment, academy liaison, and it is probably one of the most difficult positions we have, especially currently, but it's one of the most important for obvious reasons, and Amy has done an excellent job with those divisions.
Great, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, for being here. I move that we approve the appointment of Amy Walensky to lieutenant effective July 3rd, 2024, as recommended by Chief Gilmet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could, I'm just going to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
You have to identify your 3 chairs again, so,
What, you want me to?
you have to.
So, all right, so Pete Pekarski, Select Board member, is recusing himself because of his affiliation with the next item on our agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, unfortunately, Officer Brickley's not able to join us tonight, but we are very excited to recommend for promotion to sergeant. With the opening of Sergeant Walensky's position, we are pleased to recommend that Officer Brendan Brickley be promoted to the rank of sergeant, effective July 3rd, 2024. Brendan began his career with the Harwich Police Department in September of 2013. Joining the department, he has been deeply involved with numerous community policing initiatives, as well as taken an active role in mental health outreach in our community. Brendan has served as a field training officer and is an officer in charge, and is currently a member of the Cape Cod Regional Law Enforcement Council SWAT team. Brendan holds a master's degree in criminal justice from Boston University. We are extremely confident that he will continue to be a valuable asset to our department as the next patrol sergeant. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
I move that we approve the appointment of Brendan Brickley to sergeant effective July 3rd, 2024, as recommended by Chief Gilmet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Madam Chair, finally, I'd like just to point out that last process for sergeant, we had 4 candidates, that's including Brendan. All 4 did extremely well. It's always hard to choose one. They are all great candidates that can be sergeants, and I just want to reflect that they did an extremely outstanding job with the entire process, and they should be condemned for that. Thank you.
Important notation. Thank you, Kevin.
Somebody want to invite Pete home?
Yeah, you can come back, Pete.
Seats a little more comfortable.
Congratulations to all, and we're lucky to have such a fine police force and lucky to have so many great candidates, so thank you. On to new business.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve a fee increase for the community center fitness room monthly rate as recommended by the community center director.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0, Megan. Next item.
I move that we approve an interdepartmental transfer per Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B,
Okay.
as presented in packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Michael?
I just for follow-up, I would like to bring back one of them, wait a second, legal services. So it says $8,000 was used for an eminent domain taking. Do we know which eminent domain taking that was?
Do you have that info, Megan?
I believe it was the Judah Eldridge property.
Okay, if we could look into that one, I believe the fees were set aside from administrative fees from CPC for that project.
Okay.
At least for the administrative part of it. So if I could get an answer on that. And then the second one I'd like to bring back, Julie, as a topic, was we did an audit at the DPW. That was a $4,000 expense. Several things were found in that audit, nothing truly alarming, but certainly there was some information that was provided to the board related to some voided transactions and also related to house accounts. The only thing that we've managed to get done from that audit is raise C&D and MSW rates, but we've not seen anything else from that audit.
Bring the audit back as
We
an
need-
agenda item, yeah.
I know concerns were raised at that time, and we haven't heard a word about it since.
Understood. Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to build off of Select Board Member McCaskill's requests, I also think it would, at least for me, be very beneficial to see exactly what the $4,000 charge from legal for a review of an unusual Freedom of Information Act request. I would just like a little bit more information about what that was. I would believe it was all the executive minutes.
You are correct.
Right, but I still think for me to know that over the weekend would be helpful for me. Also, $4,000 for a dog hearing, it would be helpful to understand how much time was put into that $4,000, and where that ended up landing. And then Michael answered the Judah Eldridge part for me, so just a little more information prior to voting on this would have been helpful for me.
So the dog hearing, I mean, I would imagine that that's just going to be a legal's bill.
Yes, I can forward legal's bills over the last 12 months. It breaks it down by topic.
Or just for that,
Okay.
that specific, just to understand how many hours went into what $4,000 got our town.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Well, as long as we're piling on.
okay,
Madam Chair, I agree with the first part about the eminent domain, but there's a couple of things. One is more specific than the other, but in terms of the Cape Cod Commission, when they start an endeavor, they could change the rates. How does that go on? They're working on the same fiscal year.
I don't,
Do we ask them for more services, or the rate go up, or?
Kathleen, do you have any information on that?
Kathleen Barrett, Plan Inspector, Madam Chair, members of the board. It was an estimate that's assessed when we do the Cape Cod Commission, that they then adjust it based on their actual budget requirements. It's kind of it's very straightforward. There's usually not many changes, and for this particular year there was. I can reach out to them and find out exactly what it was. We really don't usually get detail insofar as how the assessment is calculated, but I'd be happy to get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason I ask that specifically is that we often make decisions about whether to use the commission's expertise or go out on a contract based on what they're telling us. So if the game rules change along the way, that's kind of important to know that they're not telling you that that's the number. They're telling you it's a guess about the number. The second one, I don't want to be double cryptic here. If somebody's making a Freedom of Information request, that's because they're asking for something that they believe would have been in the public domain that they're eligible to get. But now we're saying on the transfer that it's an unusual request, and that's all we know. Can you give me a little bit more about what request that might have been?
I'd have to respectfully defer to Megan Eldridge, the Assistant Town Administrator on that.
I'm able to give you that. We received a request for executive session minutes for several years. I think it was 4 or 5 years. And legal has to review all of those before we make them.
I'm okay. I just wanted to narrow it down because
Yes.
that's kind of a broad territory to say an unusual FOIA request.
Yes, we don't usually get information requests for executive session minutes that are for years and years.
Fine, thank you.
Anything else?
If I could, Madam Chair, thank you. Just a quick question, I think Kathleen, maybe for you. It reads, our electric inspector's salary is on a needs basis. So is our electrical inspector on a salary, or is it per diem, or how does that work?
I did get some information from the building inspector, but I could get more. But from what I understand, it's a needs-based. If you're having property that needs an electrical inspector to come out of, for building or remodeling, then, they have to be called, and it's hard to tell based on the process. That was the information I got from him. When there's increased activity, there's going to be an increased need for inspections.
Right.
So the budget was set at a reasonable estimate based on prior years, but there was just more activity this particular year.
And the town charges for inspections,
Yes,
for electrical inspections?
Yep. and permits,
Okay,
which are separate from a building department permit.
understood. And then, if I may, one more, Madam Chair.
Sure.
With respect to the rec department, I don't know if anyone's here who can answer to this. I understand there was a lot of extra work needed for the website. Is that fully up and running and operational now to our townspeople?
According to Eric's memo, it's operating, but,
It's operating, the payment portion is not operating yet.
We still don't have the payment portion of the website available to the residents.
They can sign up online, though.
And payment will be made at the rec department.
That's correct.
Understood. Okay, thank you, that's all for me.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. There's no other discussion, except to pull those items that, okay.
Last question to
Oh.
follow on his, Jeff's. Can we get an idea when the portal's gonna be up from Eric at some point?
Yeah, I think it's a combination.
It would
Kathleen
be-
might have some update on that.
It would be, it's up to the interim treasurer collector.
Okay, so we'll
That's under his
follow up with
purview.
Ed Spellman
you.
on that.
That's it.
And one more over here.
Okay?
Sorry.
Fine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During the budget cycle, there was some discussion about fund transfers during the year, unless I misunderstood that. Are there other things that happen during the year that precede these?
The only transfer that was made separate from this was the reserve fund transfer for the harbor for the unexpected expense of the engine replacement on their boat. There hasn't been any other transfers. We had talked about how we anticipated, we felt comfortable moving forward with certain expenses because there was going to be certain salaries that weren't going to be expended because the positions weren't filled. I know that the treasurer, collector, consultant, we knew that those expenses would be covered by the open position for the treasurer, collector salary. So it was more trying to be proactive and know, and, whether it was a reasonable expense to undertake those, because we didn't have a budget for it per se when we executed the contract, but we knew funds would be available.
Did we vote for that, or I can't recall doing that?
Which one? What, the
That- the-
engine?
The in-between transfer of funds?
There weren't there wasn't actually transfer, it was here, but we waited till the end, per the statute, the last 2 months of the year is when the transfers were actually implemented. But it was discussed, we tried to advise that there, to provide a level of comfort to the board, that there would be funds available.
Mhm. Anything else? Okay, so, other than the item that we said we would bring back in terms of, you want to hold those, Michael? On the,
I don't wanna hold anything,
all right,
just
So
get
move-
get the information.
Yeah.
okay, good. So then, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you. I have an original document which I can just circulate to you.
Perfect.
And then that will be the document that will be presented at the Finance Committee meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for July 11th.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Next item, C. And I don't know if, Megan, if you have anything to add to this, I'm just asking before we get into any discussion.
I was able to speak with Jack Mee, our building commissioner, to look into prior fee waivers from schools. With the building of the Cape Cod Tech School, there was a fee waiver request that was denied.
Mhm.
Those fees were not waived, they paid in full.
Great, thank you. I had asked for that information in the sense of what our history was on waiving those fees. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's apples and oranges, though. The apples and apples would be the public school that services this town, which might be Monomoy, like, say, for the elementary schools. What's the history of any Monomoy requests? Because I will point out that charter school, any charter school is a public school. And it's located here, and it does get state funds.
I don't know the answer if Monomoy was granted any waivers.
Anybody know?
I don't, and I mean, I don't think there's any debate on what's a public school. I consider the charter school a public school.
Yeah, that's what I
But,
want to put
I
out
mean,
there.
back to earlier discussions we had, I don't know, several years ago, we talked about the fact that these type of waivers, this is a function of department staff taking the time to review all of the information in order to issue the building permit. And so I don't know how we would waive fees for them and not waive fees for other nonprofits. Jeff?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve a fee waiver request for the Cape Cod Lighthouse Charter School for building permits in the amount of $1,533.95.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
We all
Michael?
know how I feel about this.
Yes, we do.
You know, these are actual costs. This is a burden on departments, and other residents are gonna have to wait for their building permits whilst we do these ones. And further, we did, the building of the, I believe, the snack or concession bathrooms at Monomoy, we did deny a fee waiver
Yeah.
request there as well. So, certainly don't support it.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else? Comments? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Sorry, that was 4-1. And now, old business, discussion on goals and objectives. And so circulated, thank you, Pete, for your document over the week, earlier in the week, and I recirculated that information Saturday. I just draw your attention to the updated information. I passed out hard copies. It has the light blue shading at the top. Has a second page that Pete had developed in terms of select board goals, because we've talked about trying to differentiate between TA and select board, but also have talked about the fact that they are also intertwined. So I drew your attention also to the two additional items, numbers 27 and 28, that Pete shared on his information. And so really here tonight, the idea is to review this yet again and try to hone in on our, top 5 or top 10, whatever way you want to look at it, top goals and objectives, so then we can then have the actions and deliverables and figure out exactly what that conversation is and how it relates to the TA's goals, and how we're going to hold him accountable. So open it up to board members for any discussion. On?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason I didn't get back to you is I largely bought into what Pete had given you, but having said that, and I know I'm fearful that I'm going to get outvoted on this, but there are two things that come to mind without which you can't effectively do any of the rest of the job. One is being courteous with whomever, whether that's the staff or the board or the general public. But the second one is just as important, probably more important, is to timely get back to people with requests. And I know that the board knows that there have been at least 2 instances in the last month where somebody has waited 30 days or more for an action where they had actually asked for an action from the town administrator. So I think it's extremely important to adopt some sort of timelines that are acceptable for us to receive responses that would be considered timely, because it just seems that, again, it doesn't matter what the task is here, that it's a deliverable. If it's not done at the right time, it's not done right.
So which one are you referring to in terms of that? Because I have 18, and to me, select board interaction with public, just frankly, to me, that's a standard thing as a person, that treating all with courtesy and respect regardless of personal animus. So that was one of, I don't know if it was just
Yeah, but
Pete's or yours, it was both of you, and again, I leave it to the board to decide if you want that to be a goal.
But I had also originally sent in about timeliness for getting back to both the board members and then for,
It's, so,
Number 12, I think.
it's, yeah, number 12 is information flow, improve communication to committees, FinCom, residents, employees, reports, and select board regarding all department operations and emerging issues.
again, it doesn't have any attendant goals, like what's acceptable. I don't consider 30 days acceptable, to be honest with you.
Well, so, I guess I'm just asking you, Don, if you want to give me a clearer language, I'm happy to put it on this list, but I did incorporate, in the original list is also here that Megan and Danielle and Natasha provided. I just gave you the most updated.
I get that. I'm willing to bounce this off because I know at least one other Select board member has made requests to the front office for information, and it hasn't always come that timely. I mean, what's timely, a week, 2 weeks?
Well, again, I hear you. What I'm asking you is, I don't see it, you're saying it's not clearly defined on the list, if I'm understanding you correctly? Because you're saying number 12 isn't exactly it?
With a time frame.
So 12, I think it needs then more language, because this is information flow and improving communication to committees, residents, employees, and reports to Select Board regarding all department operations and emerging issues. So it sounds to me like you're adding one, and that's fine.
No, I'd be perfectly fine with that, as
Okay.
long as there are parameters, because, like I said,
Jeff?
I know of at least a half a dozen things that are still outstanding that have been requested for months.
And I guess when you say that, what do you mean? Are you talking about things that relate to projects? Because we do get reports on the project updates. It's just not every week. You mean
Not just
other
projects.
items?
You know, there've been, I don't want to cite them tonight, but there are certainly specific items that have not been timely.
Then if you would do me a favor and email me those things so I could follow up on whatever is still pending out there, I'm happy to do that. Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to Don's point, I agree with you, Don. I think all of these need a better scope. I think these are just our really broad 30,000-foot goals and objectives, but they all need to be tightened up with more language to specify exactly what the board is looking for with respect to, you know, information flow and how long it takes for administration to get back to select board committee members and
Anybody,
the
yeah.
public. So I agree. I think it's not just a one-off. I think it's, and I'd like to make the point as well that regardless of which 8, 10, or 12 we actually pick here as being our top goals and objectives, they're all important. They all are going to be, I think, on the front burner of everybody's agendas going forward. But this allows us to hone in on several that we can put more words to, more verbiage, and have some clear expectations, essentially. So just because they don't make the top 10 for me doesn't mean they're not important. These are all great. Everybody did a fantastic job of putting things forward that were important to them. And as far as select board interaction with the public, I would say that's not a goal and objective for me. That's a standard. That's a culture. And if some of us, all of us, or none of us are not living up to that, then it's for the public to decide who they want to have sit back, you know, at election time, who gets reelected and who gets to serve the town for another 3 years. But, you know, I appreciate everybody's effort putting this forward. And, Madam Chair, I mean, I sent you an email of my top 10.
Yeah, I added them.
And I'd like to know from you, unless the other board members have specifics, where do we go from here? Do we make a motion on 3 of them and then add 2 of them? or-
So I'm, you know, basically when I did this and gave you the highlighted blue, which is really only 2 items, because that second line is just a blank. So number 1 and number 4 appeared based on previous discussion, and all those who were looking to support that item appeared to be 2 that were definitive goals. And those would be specifically, just going to point out to Pete's earlier discussion about, you know, board goals and TA goals. That first one, which is the discussion with Chatham on the future of funding, you know, that is specifically a select board goal. Certainly Joe can assist us in conversations in terms of schedules and coordination, but that really lies with us, in my opinion. And the other one was the one we all committed to previously, was the ATM, the annual town meeting timeline improvement, and trying to do whatever we could to address things to get them done in a more timely manner. I think we pretty much all agreed on that one as well, and that's going to take some effort. So, yeah.
Madam Chair, I move that we, I move that we add numbers 1 and 4 to our list of finalized goals and objectives.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on just picking two right now?
No, understood there, but back to the point of whether it's a select board goal or a town administrator goal, is that still to be defined later, or do we want to define that now? Because to your point, I actually think both of them are select board goals. You know, it's up to us to hold the schedule on the ATM things, right? So we've got to hold town administration accountable. We've got to hold the folks who, you know, submit articles accountable. So I think both of those are for the select board. I think the second half of number 4 is for the town, for administration, after the ATM continued. I think that's administration piece. But that's my, you know, my thoughts on those two. But again, are we trying to separate the two now, or,
I think-
again, I might be in the minority on this, where you folks don't want to separate them.
Well, I think as we've talked about at length, right, we want to make it as clear as we can for the town administrator. That's what's fair to him.
Yep.
And to Michael's points about actions and deliverables, a lot of times they are intertwined. Some of these things, you know, I think we can certainly say one thing here that's very clear is the discussion with Chatham lies with us. I think that's very clear. I think all of these things involve the town administrator as well, but to what degree, and it's up to us to say what we expect on those items. So, for example, just to use Dawn's discussion on, you know, timelines. So if we're going to talk about item number 12, information flow, you know, we need to better define that. We need to better define what we consider is the information we need updates on. So that relies on both of us, right? So I think the best thing we can do first is let's just say for now, we've got 28 items, we pick a top 10, and then we drill down on how we pull those apart and do actions and deliverables, but also to cross-check your list that you gave of TA, so that we make sure we're hitting those items. I see it as sort of a combined effort.
Okay.
Initially, let's carve them out, then let's look at how those actions and deliverables are, and let's make sure we're not missing any.
So before we vote on that, I'd like to support exactly what you're saying, Pete. Once we vote on these two, if these move forward, then the board can sit down and really define and clarify exactly what we're looking for from both.
Yeah.
So I'm with you 100% on that.
Okay, so I guess, you know, technically too, just the way we've done goals and objectives in the past, and Michael, remind me if I'm wrong, but in general, we try to hone in on what those top 10 are before we really need votes, right? So I think we can just have an open discussion about what's next. If we've got these two that I think we all agree upon, you know, what are we looking next? Now we have, let's just say, to have a goal, we have 8 more to figure out, right? Some of which I think, Pete, one of yours that I added down here in green, this goes back to fiscal discussion again, and I think that we can probably take you know, yours is a fairly comprehensive, and so I think we can probably take a couple of these others out where we're talking about, you know, you say fiscal responsibility, develop a transparent, realistic, and responsible budget message that seeks to balance the demand for services with the financial circumstances of Harwich. This message will include the town's operating budget, capital plan, debt schedule, and school department budgets. So we've got different items in here talking about debt schedule. I'm looking for the number right now. We're also talking about financial reports.
17.
Thank you. Yeah, and 17, provide select board with timely updates on approved capital projects. So there's that one, there's one on debt. And the budget process, because the budget process, and that's still 17, budget process ties back in also to the annual town meeting improvements, because the budgets in general, I believe it's more like October, Megan, isn't it, where department heads start working on their budgets?
We asked them to start in November, and then they're due early December.
Okay, so we talked about maybe rolling that back, right? So I think that if we could take Pete's 28 and look at the other pieces in here, I guess, let's see, there's the other one, I know there's one in here. The monthly financial reports and expenditures, and comp to prior fiscal year, so we can track that. Well, we can't do yours without having that information as well and understanding what we're up against. So that's number 15. So I think if you look at 15 and 17, you can incorporate that into Pete's 28. Do you guys agree?
Well, the only thing I see as a difference is, one, this is kind of setting the overall tone, 28, that is, setting the overall tone and message, so that we, we outline what the budget should look like. 17, was it 17 you just talked about?
17, that has 2 lines.
15, I think, is the one you're looking for.
Yeah,
Pete.
thank you.
15.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
So that would be just a recurring update from the town administrator, and it kind of falls into what we just went over earlier tonight. So not that we wouldn't have transfer requests at the end of June, however, we might have had a lot of the information that was asked, questions that were asked tonight, we might have had that information available throughout the course of the months, had we been getting consistent updates.
So I understand what you're saying, but I would also say that, and we can still break it out this way, but I would say that in terms of looking at monthly financial reports, that's how we're going to be informed anyway, in order to define how we're going to, what our budget message is going to go, be like to move forward. It's going to be information that I'm going to need to understand in order to figure out where are we going and what do we need to do and what do we need to address. So I almost think it's then twofold, then we leave it carved out at number 15, but I see it as also incorporated in figuring out what is the fiscal message.
I don't disagree with that ultimately that will help us set that fiscal message, but I just personally, in my few weeks here, I don't think we've seen enough budget information as far as, month to month, year over year, things of that nature. So that's the information I agree we need to help us develop that message for the next fiscal
So
year.
keep it carved out, though, as a separate
That
item.
would be my recommendation.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In support of what Pete's saying, there is more than a nuance of a difference between tracking existing stuff and projecting out what's going to be a problem in the upcoming year. As a matter of fact, one of the members of the Capital Outlay Committee pointed that out. We have been in an unusually slow period in terms of the water wastewater situation. We could find ourselves in a really big mess that would not be predicted by current cash flow because the rules are changing on some of this. And we're actually adopting more projects. So the interrelationship is the taxpayers don't get a bill that says capital projects on one bill and continuing operations on another. We're going to hit a cash flow problem here at some point without an analysis of where we are, how that's tracking right now, but more importantly, where we're going to be in a year or two and what our flexibility is in terms of operations versus capital.
Any other comments on?
So, if you don't mind, to both of you, great points. Is there a way maybe that we could do something that's all-encompassing under what we would consider to be like a financial heading, which would include monthly reports and forecasting and fiscal responsibility, transparent, realistic, responsible budget message? That could all be under one category with the action items and deliverables that we're looking for.
Yeah, Jeff, but through you, Madam Chair, you would not be able to get, as a matter of fact, I'm not even sure if that's not one of those SAT questions that says which of these don't belong. The closeout report for a project is specific to a project. It has nothing to do with the overall budgeting process, and that probably should enjoy its own priority, that when we have major things that are happening, that we track their progress so that we know that some, Brooks Academy, so that we know that things are happening to get us to a conclusion. But that's not the same
No, not at all, I
as
agree.
tracking the budget. So if we slice that out and included both of those points that we previously
That gets
talked.
right down to the granular level there is where you're going.
It is, but it's not so granular to somebody that gets a tax bill, if we can't figure
Understood.
out how to do what we're doing without an override.
Understood.
Then I would say that, if we're gonna look at coming up with sort of a financial section, I'm just gonna call it a section, and then we're gonna divvy up what that financial section looks like and what those items are, then I'm gonna say to both of you, why don't you guys come up with one piece and then divvy up what you believe those deliverables are, right? because then we can talk about that as our final piece. If that's sort of the one that's out there that we need to have more discussion on, I think it incorporates a lot of different ones that we've already got on this list.
Okay.
So then I would say, okay, if we're gonna work on the financial part, if you wanna break it into capital outlay, you wanna break it into monthly financial reports and what exactly you're looking for, so that, again, so that we're clear to staff what it is that we want too, right? Doesn't do anybody any good to say, well, that's not the report I was looking for. So let's be clear and let's try to be concise so that we get the information we want in the minimal amount of time. But having said that, then let's look at the other ones that don't relate to financial stuff to sort of figure out where we're weeding out that. And my eye is drawn automatically to number 13 that also combines 22, and that's a question mark. Because it talks about agenda items and all requests to be added. Final say for agenda is sole purview of select board members. And, but I said, it also needs to be finalized by the chair, because if we're gonna try to have a coherent agenda, it needs to be clear what's to be on the agenda, and if this next part is gonna play in, then it needs to be even more clear to staff, because documentation for upcoming agenda issues to select board members 1 week prior to meetings, even if item is not yet scheduled for inclusion on agenda, is my question. Because ultimately, it's one thing if we were doing meetings every other week, which we've talked about at different times, and I think we did that for a little while under Mary. I personally have no problem with meeting every other week if it means we're here an extra hour or two, whatever, because, if that means it's a more consolidated packet and it's more comprehensive, then fine. But currently, we're not doing that. And so saying that you want something on the agenda and then saying, but you want to have all that information 1 week ahead of time, you need to then understand you're really talking about an agenda item on like 2 weeks from when you're asking for it. And that also is impacted by whatever else staff is also working on for that next upcoming agenda. So the only reason I point that out is I want everybody to be sensitive to the fact of timing in getting things on agendas and what the work is for staff, so. I am bringing that up because, like I said, I see, I have Michael, Dawn, Pete, and I think some of this was one of yours, Dawn, and maybe Pete, so I just want to have that discussion.
Can I speak to that? What you're saying is entirely reasonable, but there were two issues that we sort of conflated in here. That has to do with how much time do we have to read 300 pages week in and week out. So that's why the comment was made about, getting us the information ahead of time. I know, and it didn't affect me as much as some other members, but I'm just talking about the possibility of an infinite or an indefinite hold on a request from the select board member so that nothing that member asks for is ever on the agenda. And there have been times when the town administrator has chosen not to have something on the agenda. I just wanted to make it clear that we own the agenda, and that whenever you have the appropriate time, as long as it's not like 6 months from now for something, that if a select board member requests something to be on the agenda within some reasonable time frame, that it does get there.
Yeah, well, just for clarification, at least whenever I've been chair and Joe's been town administrator, I've never had Joe keep anything off an agenda. If we were not prepared because we needed more documentation, sure, and that makes sense, because it plays exactly to your point, is if you don't have the adequate information, the discussion is pointless. So for clarification, that's not been my experience. But I just go back to the fact that, if this is a policy that board members want, then they need to understand the timing involved in it. So that's my comment. I leave it there. If you want to add that to one of the goals, we can certainly do that. Michael?
So, we have a motion and a second on the table for 1 and 4. So if we don't vote on that, we should withdraw those. That's just a point. I think 3 is imperative. I don't know how we would not, and I know we took some action to make it so it's doable on the select board level, but that has everybody's involved in that. Engineer, surveyors, legal, town administrator, finance, assessing, so that has to be, in my mind, that's gonna be something that we have to dole out responsibilities with actions and deliverables. So I'd like to see number 3 on there. I would agree with number 12, and to the point about, being able to, grade on this or having to add to it, I would disagree. I think it is a bit subjective, and the review of the town administrator is done by the 5 of us. If 3 out of the 5, even with that basic information in there, if 3 of the 5 are getting complaints and letters in the mail from the Cuddies that nobody's calling them back, or whomever it is, if we're getting complaints, clearly he's gonna get a not satisfactory grade on that. Right, so that's gonna show improvement. I'm not sure we need to put actions and deliverables. I think the whole sentence is an action and deliverable.
Yeah,
I'm very comfortable with 12. I guess that's my point.
well, I guess, to me, I actually made a comment there in terms of time frame for myself, because, yes, improved communication, it doesn't just include the town administrator, it also talks about FinCom and residents and employees. So I see that as a combination of a bunch of things that I think need some clarification. And also, when you say time frame, what are we talking about in terms of a response? I agree, I'm in favor of 12. I'm just saying we do need to break that down a bit, I believe, but,
All right, so 12, we could put on the potential list then. And again, you can clarify it all you want, but if it's a request for 5 months' worth of executive session minutes, then we have to be reasonable and say it's gonna take a lot longer. It takes nothing to call somebody and say, got your message, working on it.
Oh, no, I agree.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the communication that I'm looking for. 14, the improved systems to become more uniform. When we have turnovers in this building, we sometimes fall, and we just saw it on the finance team, we fall 6 months behind or more. So the systems piece of this, to me, is something that would be a TA goal, and show us how we're doing things differently, where we have to go in reverse after an employee leaves and redo a bunch of work. I don't think we should be in that position ever again, and there should be systems put into place that are just, that's how we do it, and these are the dates that we get it by. So that one makes a ton of sense to me. 27, policy review, I think that's a great idea. We have policies about our policies about other policies. It really is time, and that's a select board goal. That wouldn't be a town administrator goal. We could certainly go to him for his opinion on certain things, but I think that makes a tremendous amount of sense. The combined financial, that makes sense to me, and you can dole out actions and
where are you with that?
The one that you assigned to Don and Pete.
Oh, breaking it out, yeah, the
So I think
financial
combining
piece.
the financial, because some of this stuff is, it's not a goal, it's charter-driven. So you can look in the charter, and what the charter says, that shouldn't be a goal, that should be follow the charter on the finance stuff.
And actually, on that, on the financial piece, I found it where I was looking for the, provide semi-annual updates on town's overall debt. That's number 16. I knew that we had that in there, so just pointing that out.
So, I just listed 7, and at some point, we're either gonna have to vote to take things off or vote to put things on, because otherwise, we're gonna talk about this. And to you, Madam Chair, you're doing the work. I would just as soon pick some of these. To Pete's earlier point, whether they're the TAs or the select board, and it was only a few years ago that we went to the format that we're using now, which happens to be the same format that the town of Brewster uses. And I just had an example. Community character. So they take their governance, evaluate strategies to reduce tax burden on residents, including examining revenues and targeted local tax relief options, and managing school budgets. Well, the way they do it is they've got a primary responsible party, and then they have other key stakeholders. So on that one, it's the primary is the finance team, and then the secondary would be select board and finance committee. I don't see how we're gonna do a lot of these without primary and then secondary but have to put together specific actions that we can grade the town administrator on.
Yeah, whatever we can do, though, to clarify that spreadsheet, I think we all struggled with that every single year, at least I was part of that, because I think there's too much on it. I think we need to better define if this is, if this is what we're looking for, and I think we break that down into saying, we want this, 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 and this, and then he or she can say, I got that, right? Meaning, if it's Joe's to say, that is me, and I will delineate who will be doing that. Or, for example, Kathleen could look at it and say, that is my office, and I will be handling that. But that's how I think we need to do it. It needs to be clearer, because that other list was ongoing.
And then lastly, if you don't mind, it's in 9, but if we're combining the financial stuff, again, some of this, the free cash policy,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a goal and objective. I mean, we just have to look at our free cash policy
Policy.
and change it or not.
Right.
But the 5-year forecast, I can't remember the last time I saw a 5-year forecast. So if that could be in the financial piece that gets rewritten, I think that that's a very important thing for this board for future planning, and that falls into what Martha said from Capital Outlay last week about actually being able to plan by having what looks like it's gonna be on the horizon. I don't know how we're making some of the decisions we're making without it, and every year we see not to get it.
Well, and on that, I would say, that 5-year policy, if sewer needs to fall under there. And, or it's a separate item, because, we're spending the most money on sewer, and yet we only have it, I put in here about sewer, continue to elevate communication to residents, because believe it or not, I still think there are people out there that don't really have the full idea and scope of what it entails. But also, we talked about an owner's contractor, and I think we really need to bring that conversation back. So we're spending the most money on sewers, so that should be somewhere in our goals and objectives about how we continue to educate, how we determine if we want an owner's contractor,
What
which I
number is
think
that
is
one, Julie?
imperative.
26?
That is 26, yes.
So I'm gonna put 26 on the short sheet here. And then the last, and I said last time, number 2, Recreation Department review, Sisson Road assessment. I think we should change that maybe to department review with an action to be recreation. I only bring up recreation because that seems to be where we're getting a lot of our complaints right now, number 2.
Yeah.
Seems to be where, and that's why I put that down, that's where parents and others are going to meetings and calling us saying, what are you doing? And Chatham does this and Brewster does this. So I'd like to keep departmental review in there and maybe make one of the actions recreation. I brought up the dump earlier tonight because we haven't had that back, so that would be another one. And then Sisson Road, that's the other thing, though I think it's a smaller group, but one of the biggest things that's ever questioned at town meeting floor is Sisson Road. And we have made several plans in that building that haven't come to light, like the fields out back, the cafeteria, the auditorium. So putting together some focus by the town administrator to get moving forward with that Sisson Road project. So at next town meeting, we can present something, or at least present new tenants and new revenue streams in that building.
Yeah,
I
and
think
that,
that's an important one for us because we're often criticized on it to bring back forward
right.
as a goal.
And we
So-
did commit to coming up with a plan, but I would also say that that discussion is a good one, because 2 and 8 can go together. Because 8 talks about personnel, improved department assessments by TA, and updates on needs and improvements. So that goes directly to what we said.
So I'd be a fan of a combination of that.
Yeah, so
myself.
2 and 8 can go together.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Along those
John-
lines, if I could, Madam Chair, sorry, Don.
That's all.
With 2 and 8, I would also add, yeah, it's so easy for me to find when I'm not talking. The last piece of 14, so if it's going to be an evaluation of the department and some of the processes, also developing, I think it said personnel, developing the succession plan.
The leadership and system,
Yeah.
yeah. So add that last part of 14 up to 2 and 8, for the
Yeah.
uniformity of, well, yeah, I guess. I see that could go 2 places. could go as part of 2 and 8, or it could also go into streamlining processes about departments. But I'll put it under 2 and 8 for now, the second part of 14, all right? Don, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to roll back to 3 comments ago from Michael, because I'm not speculating on this. I get where he's coming from about there are certain lead organizations like FinCom that are involved, but the reality is that the gatekeeper on some of this stuff is the select board, and more to the point, the town administrator. The townspeople, I mean, this isn't just like speculative, that making this up. There should be a reasonable expectation on the part of the townspeople that it doesn't take a Freedom of Information request to get necessary information to act upon for town meeting. And yet that happened. And it can't happen again. It just can't.
Well, I'm just going to respond to that for a second, because I think I'm going to ask you, because I don't want to read tea leaves. If we're talking about FinCom, are we talking about FinCom?
Yep.
So again, I think we had a good meeting with FinCom just a couple weeks ago, and I think we all committed to doing a better job of communication, because to be fair to this board, FinCom didn't ask for some things that we could have provided. And then they said that they weren't watching our meetings, and I asked them to please either watch the meetings, because a lot of what we're discussing or that they're looking for, they would know from watching the meetings, but if they don't want to watch the meetings, they can certainly ask us for the information. I personally can't even get a phone call back from the chair. So, I just wanted to be very open and honest. We had a good, candid conversation about how we both needed to approve. It's not just this board, and it's not just administration. So I feel strongly about that. Clearly you can tell, but, I think we can agree that communication needs to improve, and it needs to improve on multiple avenues, so.
Madam Chair, in all due deference, the fact of the matter, first of all, I've never had a problem with them calling back, but.
Well, I have, twice.
I guess. But
No, excuse me, not I guess, I have.
But going forward, there's certain information that can only be derived from here, and yet they're responsible for doing certain things. We cannot let that happen again. As a matter of commitment going forward, which this document is. I don't care about what happened.
I agree, Don.
Other than we need to commit specifically in writing that we are going to hit deadlines in order for them to have hearings on things, or else they can't.
So that plays back into what we already have highlighted as the ATM timeline improvement, and all of the pieces that go into that came out of us having a joint meeting with FinCom for those reasons. We finished town meeting, we agreed things need to improve. We came together collectively at town meeting to clarify, and I agree. I think we all agree. We talked very productively with them. So I think ultimately, we're already on that same page with them by this highlighted blue, which is number 4, that we've already said is a priority. So before we go further into any other items, I just want to make sure, because I'm going to clean this up yet again, and next week we're going to finalize it, because we need to put an end to this. So right now, we have 1, 3, 4, 12, 14, 27, which is the select board, so I can break that out. Finance, you guys are going to come up with a group of items that will fall under a finance section, so that we're not adding a million other pieces to this.
Do you have a recommendation for which ones that we need to consolidate?
Well, I think 2 of which I said I would
Yeah, I know
add.
on the back page.
16 was my question, sorry, not 16. Yeah, no, 16, provide semi-annual updates on town's overall debt. I think that can fall under the financial. Number 17, on the capital projects, and include progress and associated costs compared and scheduled. So those can go under financial, I believe, in,
And the last page, then,
Right,
And then, Madam Chair, we talked about combining 2 and 8.
you got 2 and 8,
Pete
right.
had some comments on 14 also, I believe.
Second part of 14 is
yeah.
going to go with, so it's going to be 2, 8, and the second part of 14. That will go together.
Yep.
So that means at this point, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to jump over 27 for a second. 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, sorry, 7, because these are 1.
You say 26?
Yeah,
Is 26
so
in there?
26.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Okay.
1, 3, 4, 12, 14. I'm jumping over 27 for the moment. 26, then 28, 2, 8, and the second part of 14 are one item.
Yep.
So now we've got, what does that make us, 7 or 8?
Well, we'll have 9, and then you're gonna obviously go back to 27.
Yeah, and 27, and then- right. and
27 would be 10.
Right, okay. And I think that we end up covering, if we take all of those, and then if the two of you will define the financial part, that subsection, just share those with me, then I can incorporate that under whatever number it ends up being. Let's just leave it at 10 until you get it to me. And then it can come back with that document next week to say, this is what we have as our honed-in items, and we can talk about the financial part. Sorry?
The week after.
Oh, right, sorry, the week after, which is good, because it gives you a little time, gives me a little time too. So, do we agree? And that, at that point, we will have a more clearly defined goals and objectives. We can vote on it at our next meeting. I think that way we've kind of addressed everything on our sheet. I don't think we're missing any of these. Michael?
And I would just comment, if the board members could, and I will do my part, send their comments to you on responsible party or parties,
Yeah.
and any recommended actions or deliverables, so that we can incorporate some of that for next week's discussion, or 2 weeks' discussion.
Right.
But if we got some feedback to you on who's gonna be responsible for it, and then what actions are included in the topic, specific probably to the town administrator, for grading purposes, I think that'd be helpful, so, because otherwise, we're gonna approve the goals and objectives and then have to come back with actions and deliverables yet again.
So I think if we could also, just I'm looking at the calendar, because our next meeting is July 8th, and we have the holiday in there too, so let's just say if you could get me everything by, at the weekend, like, let's just say maybe Monday, the 1st of July, so that I could then incorporate it all and circulate it prior to our next meeting. All right?
Yes, so if that's what we're going to do, I'll just need you to read again the numbers
Yeah,
so that
sure.
I know which ones we need to send information. You have, I'd rather get them from the chair, Michael, but thanks.
It's
Go ahead.
1, 3, 4, 12, 14, 27 is going to be the breakdown
Yep.
of finances.
That's Don and Pete.
Right,
Okay.
26, and then 2, 8, and the second part of 14 is going to be one item,
Okay.
and we already mentioned 27 is the financial thing.
Great.
Oh, no, sorry, 27 is policy, so it's
Policy
27.
review,
Yeah,
right.
so add 27.
At
Combined
27's on there,
Combined financial doesn't have
And
a number yet.
right.
Yeah, that
Okay.
hasn't happened, that's
So we'll-
28.
We'll put the question mark for there, Don
Yeah.
and Pete. Okay, cool.
So,
If
I'll
you just
clean this
follow
up.
my
and
notes,
then-
you already have that, but.
Like it on the source.
Okay, so I think that's a good starting, well, ending point. And then we'll finalize them at the next meeting. All right. Any other items on goals and objectives? No? And let's see. Megan, do you have any?
I do
report?
not. No report from us.
Select board members report. Pete?
The only thing I was going to bring up, touched upon a little bit, is if we could ask for an update at the latest, our next meeting, regarding some of those communications that came in.
Are you talking about the
The
letter?
couple letters that came in, there's
yeah.
2 or 3 different letters, if we can get an update on those. sorry, I don't have it in front of me to tell you which
Yeah, I
they
know,
are,
which,
but-
I know the more recent one that you're
Yeah.
referring to, and I think there was one other one.
I could send an email if it's not clear, so,
Okay.
once I do it, find them.
And Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Might as well end the meeting where we began it. I did go to Judy Ford's production. She wrote it and put it together. It's amazing. It's at the South Harwich Meeting House. It's all set up as if you're on a ship. It's an amazing piece of history, and it was done really well, and I recommend anybody who's got the time to go there Saturday or Sunday to go there, because it's well worth your time.
Thank you, Don. I'm hoping to make that next week, or Sunday, whatever day. Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only have a question regarding Hark and the charge. I did get a phone call last week. When do we expect to bring the Hark charge back?
Michael, you still want to have a conversation about
Oh,
that?
I will. I sent you the paragraph that I thought needed to be.
I thought that was, I mean, is that going to be removed in its entirety, or you just want to replace language? That's what I'm trying to get at.
I'd be okay with some of it replacing the language, but I did explain to you how I feel about committee members being tasked with going to department heads or, you
No,
know, I
and
know
I-
they can come to us, but I don't want to send them into all of our committees as a police force, trying to find things that are wrong when we have a,
But I don't want you necessarily just not voting on it, or,
I appreciate
I think we can come up with something that we can both agree to, so that's where we're at.
That's great. If possible, we get a draft of that so the rest of the board can see it.
It's just that one section, he's already written down one thing, so
So we can put it on the 7/8 agenda?
I think so.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you.
Michael?
my only thing is my plea again to press the town administrator to get a hold of Cape Cod Commission. I'd like to get started on traffic studies before the projects are presented.
Yeah. And I just want to say that I attended, Michael, you were there as well, I attended the send-off for Chief Gilmet, even though he's not gone yet. And it was really nice to see everybody and see what a piece of the community he's been. It's hard to believe that 9 years have flown by so quickly, so. Anyway, can I get a motion to?
Motion to adjourn.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.